Hi, I'm Sarah from the upcoming. Pleasure to have you here with us in London for the London Film
Thank you,
Festival.
Sarah. Thanks.
Maybe you could do a short introduction and tell us a bit about your film and what audiences can expect.
My name is Edward Lovelace. I've got a feature documentary here in competition at the London Film Festival called Name Me Lawand. It is a film about Lawand, who is a young deaf Kurdish boy who grew up in Kurdistan, and he didn't have access to a deaf education or, I guess, a deaf identity. And he didn't have any language. He didn't know what his name was. He'd never communicated with his family before. And when he was 5 or 6, his family decided to leave Kurdistan and travel across Europe to try and find somewhere where he could access a deaf education, essentially. Ended up in Derby in the UK, where he was sort of taken in by this really beautiful deaf school, the Royal School for Deaf Derby. There he learned language for the first time. And the film essentially is like, I guess, a celebration of the personality that he was able to discover through language, but it's also about his fight against the Home Office to stay in Derby and to continue learning British Sign Language and to be with his mates. That's the synopsis.
And tell us how you came to this story. What was the genesis of the project and why you thought it was going to work so well as a documentary subject?
Saw a photo of these two young boys, which were Lawand and his brother Rawa. They're like nearly identical. And a photographer had taken a photo of them in their in where they were living in Derby when they first arrived, and I just thought, I wonder how, they looked like they obviously were there and so connected, but I was reading that they didn't have any communication. They couldn't communicate with their parents either. There was no, I guess, one primary language in that household, and I was just wondering how they communicate with each other, how especially Lawand was understanding where he was, what he was doing there, and what this world was he was in. Essentially, I spent a year. I basically moved to Derby, spent a year, learned sign language, and my intention was never really. I didn't care too much about whether there was a film to be made at the end of it. I was just enjoying a filmmaking process that could have like a positive experience on this family. They were quite detached. They didn't know anyone in Derby. And myself and two deaf producers and a Kurdish producer and my wife, who's a British producer, we just sort of became a family with them. That was just super joyful. I think the thing that then, I guess, ignited the film, was that through language, Lawand's personality just exploded in front of our eyes. And it was like, I mean, Lawand now is just a superstar. Like, he comes in a room and just everyone, he just is like a force of nature. He's amazing. And once his sort of personality presented itself, my role as a filmmaker was just like, I've got to get out of the way and just let this kid just lead us creatively to where we've got to be. And then the film sort of changed, and the film ended up being a celebration of friendship, basically, which is like, that's the most important thing to Lawand. That's what he always wanted. I just want to be able to communicate with my friends, make my friends laugh. I want to be able to have friends and understand what friendship is.
What an incredible journey to go on as a filmmaker, as well as follow them on the journey. So what must have been some of the highlights, but also maybe challenging moments in making the film?
Challenging moments, I think, were at the beginning, because I guess I could really see, because I spent so much time with Lawand and his school, that sort of trapped inside of him, because he didn't have a language, was this like amazing personality. I think sort of convincing people at the beginning that this film was going to end up having this sort of superstar at its center, that was quite difficult. I think once Lawand's personality was blossoming, people were like quite quickly like, this kid's super captivating, and not only is his story a really important one, he as a storyteller is like, just, he's pretty magic, which was great. I think the best day on set was probably like when, I guess, Lawand at the beginning didn't have the ability to tell anyone what he'd been through. When he got a language and then had that ability, it then took a bit of time for him to actively choose to communicate. This is what I've been through. This is what I've seen. This is who I am. This is how I see the world. He decided to share that with the film team before he shared it with his school or his family or his friends. So that day when I sort of realised that the film was like an outlet for him that he maybe couldn't get anywhere else. That just gave me a real sense of joy that what we were doing was going to be a really positive experience for him. And again, like if the film ends up being good, that's like a bonus at the end of it. That was a different journey that we hadn't yet embarked on. But I think that day when I was like, we've got to keep doing this because he wants us here and he's really getting something from it, which is quite life changing. That was probably the best shoot day.
What do you hope ultimately people will take away from watching it? Of course, such an inspirational story, but films like this, I guess, can help people have empathy with people who are in such different situations to themselves.
Yeah. I think Barry Jenkins, who's like, you know, every filmmaker's hero, he said, you know, cinema is like is the best like empathy machine. You know, someone who doesn't understand and who doesn't care can go see a movie and suddenly they do understand, they do care about something that might not be in there every day. I think this film, I would say, hopefully, but I think it definitely does that. I think the main sort of message I think that the film is about is that when someone finds their place in the world and they find the language that allows them to be truly them, and they find people that support them, that help them be truly themselves, someone who you wouldn't think could do the things they do suddenly can do them. I think seeing that, and obviously that's definitely Lawand's story, seeing what he now can do because he's sort of found his place, that I think is just like a really like wicked universal message, and that has like made me rethink how I see the world and how I see people. And yes, I think that's the big message of like when someone finds their place in the world, they can sort of do anything. So yeah.
Finally, what does it mean to you to have the film playing here at London Film Festival and competing, of course? And do you know what you're going to be working on after this?
Yeah, LFF is obviously, yeah, I'm a London-based filmmaker. You know, I know everyone probably says this, but when we were making the film, I kept on saying like LFF, like that. I just knew London Film Festival would get it. They'd understand it. They'd understand what we want to do with it. Yeah, it's a film for a deaf audience, for a hearing audience. I think in a way that might not have been done before, like bringing two different audiences together. I just thought if LFF see it and they believe in it, it will sort of have it will get shown in the right way, and so that's an honor that they love it as much as we do. So that's so cool. Beginning to get going on the next thing, but maybe it's too early to talk about it yet. But yeah, the beginning.
No problem. Well, of course, you're still in the midst of enjoying presenting this one. But thank you so much for sharing all that with us, and
Thanks.
really hope it goes well at the film festival.
Ace. Thank you so much. Cheers.